going to record. So that's a very good clue to the fact that we're going to start right now. And a very good afternoon, everybody. We're coming towards the end of our season of BRT UK Lunchtime Masterclasses, supported by Atkins, with this, the 6th and penultimate session. Whether you're joining us for the first time today, most of you are not, of course, or you've been with us since we started back in May, a very warm welcome to you all, and thank you so much for joining us. After last week's more abstract session on innovation with Thomas Abelman, this week's sees us back in the mainstream BRT with what is going to be a fascinating update on Kent Fastrack. Our main speaker today is Shane Hymers from Kent County Council. Now, the thing to tell you about Shane today is that he's not in Kent at all. He is, in fact, I think, in Nashville, Tennessee. And whereas we're just thinking about lunch, it's just about breakfast time for him, 7:30 something, 7:34, I guess. So wonderful, Shane, that you have been able to get up and be with us today. And he is supported by his colleague, Daniel Gillen, and we're going to hear a lot more about them and from them, of course, in a minute. Meantime, I have pressed the record button, as I say, so we are capturing the whole of this session for people to watch afterwards. Now, a word to you in our audience. We are really so pleased to have you, of course, but do please make sure that you're muted. This really is important, and please stay muted during the whole session. We're hoping that you're going to add to the chat by giving your questions and answers. Well, you won't get the answers, of course, the speakers will do that, but your questions and comments, and I'll put them to Shane and Daniel in the Q&A session after the main presentation. First of all, though, I should introduce myself. I am James Freeman, and I'm chair of Bus Rapid Transit UK, which we usually call BRT UK. It's my job to moderate today's session, and indeed, I've been doing that the whole programme. BRT UK is about spreading knowledge and good practice in the field, not just of BRT, but of quality bus operations across the board. And today's topic is certainly going to be doing that. I think we're all pretty familiar with the format now. We've just an hour this lunchtime, and this Thursday and next Thursday, of course. We're done by 1:30, and each session is a simple Zoom run by me. Passenger Transport is our media partner, writing up each of the sessions for the magazine. Have you seen this week's? This week's, it came out this morning. I've had a good look through, and we gratefully acknowledge support for our advertising from Atkins. So now it's my very great pleasure and privilege to introduce our speakers. So from the United States today, Shane Hymers is Fast Track Development Manager at Kent County Council. As a long-standing BRT champion, Shane joined the council from Transport for London in 2019 as a bus network development specialist to lead on implementing the next generation of Fast Track. His work includes analysing future technologies and methodologies for enhancing buses' prominence in Kent's modal share mix. In particular, he focuses on the reduction of journey and dwell times and evidencing their vital impact on uptake. This, of course, features heavily in Kent's Bus Service Improvement Plan, BSIP. His team have worked with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the Transport Studies team at the University of Cardiff in developing a new reliability metric for buses' journey time variability. As well as his development work in Kent and London, Shane has also worked with bus companies on the operational side and retains a keen interest in that side of things, keeping close to the day-to-day running of Fast Track, carefully monitoring operational data and customer satisfaction metrics. So he's joined today by Daniel Gillen, who is Kent's principal Fast Track development planner, and tells me that he thinks he's the youngest presenter so far on BRT UK's Lunchtime Masterclasses. Daniel came to Kent from Cardiff University in February 2021, where he'd been undertaking a master's degree in transport planning. During his time at Cardiff, Daniel worked in partnership with Kent County Council on his master's thesis, which focused upon how we measure journey time reliability based upon the sources of operational data collected on Fast Track. In the year and a half that Daniel has worked on Fast Track, he's been thrown in, he says, at the deep end. This has included co-writing Kent's successful Zebra funding bid, helping to launch the Fast Track A to Z service, and delivering the real-time information provision as part of the Gravesend Bus Hub project. In more recent times, Daniel has had increased operational focus, working closely with the incumbent operator to improve standards across the operation. So I'm really looking forward to getting an update on Fastrack, and delighted that we have Shane and Daniel as our Lunchtime Masterclass speakers today. So I have now hopefully facilitated the screen sharing, Daniel, and I'm going to hand over to you. I think the way this is going to work is that, Daniel, you're going to drive the main program, and Shane is going to hop in, as it were, from across the drink. So welcome, Daniel and Shane.
Thank you very much. As James mentioned, I'm going to take the presentation. I think I've got the slightly easier bit, and then I'll leave Shane to answer all your difficult questions in about 20 or 25 minutes time. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk you through Fastrack, kind of our history, where we've come from, but also really dive into the future, because the next few years Fastrack's very interesting and full of quite a lot of exciting changes. So for those of you who are unaware, so the Fastrack service was established in the early 2000s, very much actually the two routes in quite different ways. So Route B, which launched first, has been operated and managed by Kent County Council ever since the beginning. And that was all based on a successful bid to the Community Infrastructure Fund, which provided the core route of bus lanes and segregated sections. By comparison, Route A is quite unusual in so much as until April this year, that was managed and also provided by Prologis, which is a major housing developer, and that was as part of the Section 106 agreements to do with the bridge development, which is a large mixed-use development in the north of Dartford. And in effect, under those planning conditions, to ensure the sustainability of the housing and business space that was going in, there was terms that they would provide and manage the Fastrack bus service, which I think is a very unusual deal. It'd be interesting to see if any other housing developer does that again, but that took place until we adopted Route A or responsibility for Route A in April of this year. Ever since the beginning, both Route A and Route B have been operated by Arriva, but on one with contractual relationships to Prologis and one with relationship to KCC. We also currently have an AZ service, which touched on, but I'll mention a bit more about that later in the presentation. Now, Fastrack's very important to at a strategic level, both locally and within the county. So it's a key part of our growth out gridlock transport plan, and will be even bigger part of local transport plan 5, which is current in development. And it's also a key part of Ebbsfleet Garden City, their implementation framework, and they've got really big targets towards public transport mode share. And with Ebbsfleet being such a large housing development area, it's vital to have Fastrack at the heart of that, to ensure that the development that goes in is sustainable, and to really provide a good alternative for the public to the private car, particularly as there are planning restrictions on the number of car parking spaces as part of the Ebbsfleet development, which is obviously expanding over the next couple of years. Now, in terms of value of BRT, I'm sure you're aware of a lot of the benefits, having had some of the previous sessions, but just some key bits is the fact that there's a decent percentage of car users who've been encouraged to switch to the bus if it was quicker and more reliable, and that's our key focus within Kent and with Fastrack. Is we want to keep doing more and more and put more priority measures in place to really protect journey times and reliability on the Fastrack network, because that's so vital to uptake. And then also there's a real link between that infrastructure spend and the wider benefits to the economy locally. Now, it's worth noting in terms of the BRT market that BRT is not just for one particular socioeconomic group. BRT very much transcends all groups. The speed benefits come with it. If it's fast enough and connects people to where they want to go, anyone will use it. And we know from talking to people in the network, we've got millionaires who live on the Fastrack network and use it to get to Ebbsfleet Station or other stations so they can get to London. So it's very much a good bridging mode. It's appeals to a much wider market than the regular bus, and is very much a key item for us in what is so the Thameside area currently is a very under pressure area traffic wise. It's a very key method for us to try and take on the private car and really build mode share in that regard. So in terms of the existing Fastrack Thameside network, so this is what the network is as of April 2022. So we've got the B route, which operates from Gravesend through to Dartford via Ebbsfleet, Greenhithe, Bluewater and Dartford Valley Hospital. And we have the A route, which is Dartford to Bluewater via the bridge and Amazon. And then finally, we have our AZ services, which are shift time extra services linking Amazon with Dartford and Amazon with Gravesend, to take on average about 1,200 to 1,500 passenger journeys a day. And in terms of levels, around Christmas time, we actually have seen upwards of 1,800 passenger journeys a day, and that's a real big demand that's kind of come on in the last 12 months, and I'll discuss that in the coming slides. Now, just to show you a couple of images of dedicated infrastructure. So it's a real mixture of just your standard bus lanes, segregated traffic lights, and these are traffic lights which obviously sense the bus coming, stop cars and allow the bus across. But then also, as these images show, a couple of which are taken around the bridge development in Dartford, there are also sections of Fastrack only busway, and these ones at the bridge are particularly beneficial as the development has been built kind of around the Fastrack busway. So the Fastrack buses have a strategic designed and planned advantage over cars and other modes. The image in the top right actually shows the Fastrack only bridge which goes over the M25. That bridge is hugely important for the Fastrack service. It saves or avoids going through what is an incredibly congested M25 junction, and when the Dartford crossing goes down, it's a huge asset to us, and really encourages people to use the Fastrack service and gives it that strategic advantage above and beyond the traditional car. And the challenge for us actually is because it's such a strategic advantage is preventing obviously road users from using the lanes. Now at the bridge we've got barriers, but elsewhere on the network it's only enforced by the police, and that's where the changes to the Traffic Management Act Part 6 coming through this year are going to be hugely important for Fastrack and really further enforce Fastrack's benefits, as we'll be having ANPR across a number of strategic points on the network to support the Fastrack service. Now, one area I think we're hugely proud of on Fastrack is, despite COVID, and the fact that we're currently at a market or at a level where a lot of bus services are struggling to get to 80 or even 90% of patronage. Actually, Fastrack has recovered. In March of this year, we were 109% of what was the 2019 monthly mean patronage, which is monthly mean is 219,000, and we were at 239,000, which is hugely encouraging. There has been obviously a shift in patterns in terms of how people travel, and there's more leisure travel, and people tend to be traveling only a couple of days in the week, where previously they would travel to connect into a train to go into London maybe 5 days a week. But we have seen the recovery from COVID. Now, in part, this is or the location of a large Amazon warehouse on our network has helped, but that's not the be all and end all. Actually, when you look at the data for Fastrack A and B from March, so the month before the A diverted to serve Amazon, and just take all the Amazon data out, actually A and B were almost 100% of where they were pre-COVID. It's when you add in Amazon demand as well, we've exceeded, and that's something we're very proud of as a network, that we have recovered. It's hugely important, I think, to all the strategic things we want to do moving forward. But yeah, we're one of, well, this was the first service in Kent and one of the first services we think in the southeast to achieve this, which is, yeah, for us was a big deal as a network. Now, I mentioned Amazon. Amazon's a very interesting example where, as you'll see from the map at the bottom, Amazon is located so close to the Dartford Crossing Bridge. We had to get involved to try and help reduce traffic pressures locally. Now, Amazon, under their planning regulations, had to form some form of bus service, and we worked with them over the course of 6 weeks, leading up to their opening of their site in August of last year. In terms of service, this was until April this year. This was contracted by Amazon, but with our permission. So they had our permission to use the infrastructure, our support, and we worked really hard with them to drive and improve standards on that service and work through any issues. And then again, since April, that's been absorbed into wider with our Arriva contract, and we've now taken over management of the AZ and Amazon provision. But that's huge, as I say, because when you 1,400, 1,500 passenger journeys is not a small number a day. That's actually really, really important and really huge for us to take in, but particularly considering this Amazon depot was built on the site of the former Littlebrook power station, and actually next to it, Coca-Cola are having a factory go in, IKEA have got one go in. So we've got huge amounts of employment suddenly in this area, and if we don't get involved and if we don't use our strategic assets here, then this is going to really compound the issues of the Dartford crossing. But actually, this is a really easy, sustainable method to work with these employers to bring huge numbers in. And in the case of Amazon now pay for all their employees to get free travel and Fastrack. And that's a huge deal, because that's, yes, it's helping Amazon's employer meet their planning regulations, but it's a huge deal in terms of the pressure it takes off the network in terms of sustainability. And yeah, it's our hope that we can scale this up with Coca-Cola, with IKEA, and with all the other businesses in that area, really to serve that demand and ensure it remains sustainable, which, as I mentioned, is one of the key ambitions of the Fastrack service. Now, in terms of moving forward, there's a number of really big projects kind of coming in the next few years, and probably the big two that are heavily interlinked is the next phase of Fastrack operation contracts. So we're looking to go out for a new long-term contract, but also within that, Fastrack becoming an electric operation. And this is a really important part for us in terms of going net zero and even going beyond. And this all dates back to in 2018, we had a opportunity to charge bus trial and partnership Volvo, which is top left image, which was really successful. It delivered the best results for Volvo of anywhere, or of the use of that vehicle anywhere. But that really started to kind of continue to build this appetite. And it was always our plan for how do we go electric, and we were always planning to do that. But this was heavily supported by last year us writing a successful Zebra bid to the government for funding for 28 vehicles for the Fastrack electric operation, and also for the associated infrastructure. And I guess the key point to note with that is, unlike, I guess, most zero emission operations in the UK, we're going and will be going down the opportunity charge model, which, having done extensive modelling work, heavily suits the characteristics of the route, in terms of length, in terms of the intensiveness of service, and really the challenge for us was there is a cost difference to that compared to battery electric. How do we kind of bridge that, or how do we look at that? And that was something that we very much looked at Zebra, and Zebra's helped us with, and been a really a huge step forward with, and the plan is for vehicles to be on the ground late 2023, early 2024. And we're currently just looking through really the options and working out exactly what vehicles we go forward with, and what charging infrastructure, and what that looks like, because there's such a variety of, I mean, on screen there's just a couple of different options, but there's so many different vehicle providers and infrastructure providers. Is what we go forward, and making sure it's right and best fit to both the Thameside network, but also in the case of Dover, to the Dover network as well, as a new network, and kind of seeing where we go with that. I also mentioned in terms of changes now, the Thameside network has kind of got a huge amount of growth in the next few years, and this is all linked into, or heavily linked into, the growth of the Ebbsfleet Garden City, which I touched on. So if we start top left, obviously I mentioned Prologis operated Route A in April. We adopted over the route, and we're in the process of just doing the final few elements in terms of adopting the infrastructure as well, and that was the first a real big step. We've got we're currently in the process of starting to build a tunnel around Bluewater, and what this will connect into is this zero emission tunnel will connect Bluewater through the short cliffs and through to Ashmere, Alcadon, Castle Hill, and all these new housing developments as part of the Ebbsfleet Garden City. Being a zero emission tunnel, that's fits in with our wider plans for zero emission vehicles, but we're also looking at all support vehicles, Fastrack also being zero emission, and going straight through the cliff. It gives a significant time benefit for those residents to Bluewater, and gives that strategic advantage to Fastrack again, which again is deliberately planned. And with the Whitecliff Fastrack spine, that's very much designed on the principle of it runs right through the centre of the development, with stops at key places to ensure that Fastrack's as attractive as possible, and the development's designed around Fastrack, not Fastrack retrofitted into this new housing development. And then just to the east of the network, there's also, so currently we'll have the Northfleet embankment developments as they come on, and there'll be new Fastrack infrastructure through there, and also Bar Street Contraflow will open next year, and that's in the short term will likely link into something like a Fastrack E, so like a shorter service, but once which operates between Gravesend and Ebbsfleet. But once the Beam Road tunnel and Whitecliff Fastrack spine opens from Bluewater through, that will enable us to extend Route A all the way through to Gravesend, and have two end-to-end routes. And with, I guess, the developments ongoing, and with, for example, Amazon and Coca-Cola and all of that, we're already starting to think about whether we need even more capacity around those developments, such as how the network can change in the space of a short time in terms of planning. And these are just some images kind of to go through what I've explained. So on the left, that's actually the current state of the Fastrack spine road. So it's there. So say the housing is built around it. That's for Fastrack vehicles only. Top right, we have the Beam Road tunnel kind of as in their current state. So there were previous tunnels which were built as part of the construction of the Bluewater shopping centre, and how we're looking to kind of dig new tunnels around them. And then finally at the bottom is just a mock-up of Bar Street Contraflow, which will enable buses to go contraflow to the existing ring road on that stretch of road, which is a huge time saving again for Fastrack. Just to mention also, we're currently in the process of constructing Fastrack Dover. So Fastrack Dover was, so groundbreaking was a couple of months ago. So this is a Fastrack service that operates between Dover Priory Station and Whitfield via Dover Castle and Dover Town Centre. Now this is a hugely important part or project for Dover, because in the next 10 to 20 years, a very high percentage of the new housing for Dover is planned to be built at Whitfield, as well as the Connaught Barracks scheme, and Fastrack will serve all of this. Hence, what the map you see on screen is Fastrack Phase 1, which is planned to open late autumn next year. But actually around Whitfield, the intention is very much to expand the route further and further over time and provide that key link. And that's another one where it's ensuring that development's sustainable and taking pressure off of existing roads, which are already have traffic pressures, but also it's in the future we'll look at further bits, particularly around the port, because that's another, like the Dartford crossing for us has been a huge reason behind the fast track Thames side, and we're constantly looking at ways that we can put further priority in for fast track in response to that. The Port of Dover is a similar one with traffic pressures, and we need to continue to think about in terms of fast track Dover. Just final few slides to finish up with, really. One, I mentioned earlier that we're looking at going zero emission in terms of the vehicles, but we want to go beyond that. And shelters is a really big way. We're currently in the procurement processes for a new fast track shelter contract, all of which would be planned to be living roof shelters. And this isn't just using, I guess, said the more traditional products you might find in living roof shelter. We want to use seeds and flower mixes that are suited to the Shrill-Carder bee, which is a native rare bee, which is local to the fast track Thames side network. And in Dover, we just on any shelters that we'd supply there would, as KCC would be in new developments would be a similar mix, or a mix that's there. But that's really important for us to have these living roof shelters to contribute to that and to contribute to Kent's Plan B. We're also very keen on a new RTI, so as part of that, shelter tenders also need an RTI lot, and replace it. Our intention is to replace all of the real-time information displays across the fast track network. We installed some new screens as part of the Grays and Bus Hub project, which is the middle one, and we also installed a totem recently at Greenhide Station, and that's kind of our first steps. But we're aware that all of the other assets on the network need replacing, and hence the role of the tender. And that's because we've had strong feedback in all of our market engagement surveys that actually accurate real-time information is really vital to the service. I touched on wildflower as in terms of the living roof shelter, but just to mention also, we are doing little projects on the network in terms of our assets, and particularly our wildflower planting along the fast track busways. So we use those assets again to promote the Shrill-Carder bee, because it's a very simple step we can take, but it can have a huge impact. And actually, in terms of Kent's Plan B, we work very closely with them to the point of the bus on screen. We had liveried up and in partnership with Kent Plan B, really to promote the scheme, because we're really keen to go beyond just being seen as a bus rapid transit service. We want to link into all other Kent's projects and really contribute to Kent's climate goals. And then just final few things, I guess, that we're discussing internally. And the national bus strategy for us, well, in terms of fast track, was a hugely important document. I think a lot of the things it mentions in it very much are in line with what we've done on fast track already, and also where we want to go with the service. And just a few bits we've kind of thought about moving forward for the services, both looking at going to regulated headway similar to a London model over a scheduled service, but also we're very much looking at how we the fares that we do. So currently fares are set by Riva as the incumbent operator. However, with the new operations tender from the end of next year, early 2024, we will be going to a gross cost contract model. So we will pay the service provider an operations fee, but we will take all the fare revenue, which is a very different model to in the past, where the operator has paid a departure fee per journey for exclusive use of the fast track lanes. And as part of our work with fares, we're looking at going cashless. We're looking at flat fares, but also we're really looking at some of the ticket offers and what we do, because in the case of fast track route A, where Prologis had an obligation to provide free travel under their section 106 to residents of the bridge, that ended in April this year, and that was a real challenge for us to kind of step out of, and where there was no obligation, or the obligations were always planned to end, how we step out of that, and we really think about what we do with ticketing moving forward to kind of to see what those issues are and trying to go around that. But yeah, so Fastrack, just to summarize, I guess in the next few years it's got huge changes. I think we're starting to see the first few bits of that, and a lot of it is currently in the stages of being planned and procured. But I think we'll start seeing more and more things on the ground, like we've seen the new RTI appear recently. In the next year or two, there'll be huge things and moving forward. And I think off the back of COVID and our patronage recovery, actually Fastrack's got, well, I'm very encouraged. Looks like it has a good future. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Daniel, very much indeed, for a very comprehensive overview, and give us a few clues about what's going to happen. And I'm delighted to say that the chat has already got some comments and questions in it, as you may have noticed, and it's therefore a great opportunity to bring Shane in, who's been patiently waiting, having gone all the way to wherever it is, Nashville, Tennessee, just to speak to us from over there. He's had to wait half an hour before he can actually contribute. But so let's get going. Remember, the process is put your comments, questions in the chat, and we'll pick them out and talk about them. So and the first person to get in there was Peter Shelley, and his comment was, and I share this, I think it's absolutely right, it's an amazing story, and this infrastructure is really impressive, but interesting. What proportion of the local journeys, not just Fastrack, but the whole local journeys, are on Fastrack?
So, sorry, just checking you can hear me okay.
Yes, perfect. As if you're in the room.
Great.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, signal's pretty patchy out here, so being on top of a mountain here, hopefully, yeah, it's okay. So the last time we measured it, we were at 22% of modal share, and the way we measure that is essentially we look at the corridors that are within 500 meters of the Fastrack network, and then all those that live and work within that area, we survey to see what their journey, how they make their journeys. We actually think that we've got a target of 25% by the end of next year, and we think actually if we go out and measure it today, that we'd be much closer to that than the 22%. So yeah, I mean, we have really met our targets, and slightly jumping ahead to another question I saw is we have a particular focus on the big employment centres, but also in the residential areas of targeting the second car ownership, getting people to travel on Fastrack instead of the second car. And that's really gone kind of hand in glove with COVID, because what we've seen, and part of our success of getting patronage back, is that where people are actually working at home a lot more, so we've lost some of our commuting ridership, but actually people are thinking, well, we live on Fastrack, why don't we give up the second car? We're really not using it as a family. So that's where a lot of our new numbers have come from. So the journey patterns are very different to how they were in 2019, but yeah, we are really pleased to see people
so that's I mean, the modal share is very impressive though, isn't it? But if you stepped away from Fastrack in the same geographical area, but in the bits that Fastrack doesn't get to, the modal share is presumably much less.
It is, yeah. So we think that it's around 80 to 85%. So I mean, it's still pretty good compared to other parts of the county, which are much lower. But yeah, I mean, Fastrack, I think that this is a really good demonstration of why BRT works, and why journey time is so important, as Daniel mentioned in his in the presentation, is that we know that people do critically evaluate time. So as Daniel said, we know we've got people use Fastrack leaving their Maseratis on the driveway because they know that Fastrack is going to get them to the station much quicker. And yeah, we see a direct correlation between the journey times and uptake. So if we disaggregate sections, and where it's not a perfect network, we do have pinch points, but where we work through those and make improvements, you see the numbers, they just follow. So I am completely obsessed with journey times and dwell times, and I just believe that the quicker you make journeys and the more infrastructure in parts or in whole that you can do, that's what's going to influence more people on buses.
Yeah, and your proof of the pudding is your relationship with the M25 and the Dartford crossing and all the rest of it, because I mean you do have the magic formula, don't you, for getting around the congestion. So that must immediately give you a tremendous hand up in terms of the way people feel about the whole thing.
Absolutely, and I mean, Fastrack advertises itself because, as you say, it's such a bottleneck for traffic, and our buses are rapidly moving past people sat in traffic, and I think people get to the point where they look over and think, I want to be on that bus, not sat in this car in this traffic. So
yeah. So
it does help.
Yeah, no. Okay, so let's move on. Andrew Garnett, who obviously comes from passenger transport, so we'll be listening very carefully to the answer to this. Asks, has Amazon and the other developments that you mentioned, the other firms coming on board, been a big driver of getting patronage ahead of 2019 so rapidly? And Daniel did sort of touch on this, but would you like to say some more about how Amazon has played into this?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's absolutely helped. We've grown phenomenally since the launch of Amazon. I think we came to that very late in the part in the conversation, because actually Amazon's obligation is to provide 2 coaches at the beginning of end of shifts. But I think, in credit to them, that they've come along and said, actually, we want to run buses and services throughout the day, and to get not only our staff here but visitors and such. And I'm being very frank and honest about it. I believe that they have seen an opportunity in Kent to show this kind of blueprint of how buses can unlock development. And we know that Amazon have gone elsewhere in the country and said, look at what we're doing in Kent. We're right by the Dartford crossing, and yet all these people are coming by bus and we make it work. So I think that it's not just out of the kindness of their own heart. I think it's they use the Fastrack model as an example to help them unlock agreements elsewhere. But it certainly has helped. And obviously Daniel mentioned we've got Coca-Cola and IKEA coming online shortly. And the challenge for us is working with the local town planners and the companies to encourage them to stagger their shift times, so that we don't end up with these 2 or 3 massive peaks at each end of the day, and then over-resourcing Fastrack, and then having these vehicles that we don't have much to do with it throughout the rest of the day. And as Daniel showed in his slides, I mean, we were forced into using double deckers for the AZ because it was such short notice. That's all we could find on the market. But anyone who knows me and knows how I like to work these things, is I'm not a fan of double deck buses on BRT because of, as I said, the dwell time. It's the challenge for us is making sure that we get the capacity right going forwards. But we do think that high occupancy, single deck, dual door vehicles is the way to go in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, and did I understand correctly that this spring saw a kind of moment of truth when people stopped getting free travel and had to opt to ride. I mean, that must have been quite a test, really, of did Fastrack provide what people want? It's one thing to get a free ride, it's quite another to actually need to pay for it. And you seem to have survived that very neatly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old adage is it's very easy to give someone something, it's very hard to take it away. And we saw this as a red flag. I mean, when I joined, the first thing that I was concerned about was 3 years down the line, we're going to be taking away free travel from people, and that is just there's a real risk that KCC will become the pantomime villain, because people won't understand necessarily that it's a long-term plan, and the way that Fastrack works is, I'm charged with making it wash its own face. So it's not subsidised in the sense of running the service. Obviously, we do benefit from infrastructure grants and that sort of thing to build the network. But in terms of the service, it must wash its own face. So, I mean, what we had to do is just gently over the last few years is just kind of engage with the community and just softly explain that things are changing and why. And actually, I mean, you're always going to get a few people that just, think it was free, it should always be free. But actually, we've managed to bring the community along with us. And I think that's another important aspect about Fastrack, is that we believe that it belongs to the communities and that they should influence and shape the decisions. So, we regularly hold public forums and online and paper-based surveys and such to really capture what it is that people want and feel about the service. So yes, it was a challenge, and again, we're looking at what the future holds for ticketing and pricing and such. And we're very conscious not to. There's things within the National Bus Strategy about fares. So what we don't want is more gimmicks and then things that we can't sustain. What we're looking at is trying to just have a flat fare or a couple of flat fares that just bring the price down on average for everyone. But this is, well, for most, sorry, I should say. And this is, I think this is an important element, because as part of local authority, rather than just me being a commercial bus operator looking at the bottom line, is we do have our role to play in the mode share mix. And actually, we think if you have a flat fare set at the right price, you're going to, at the lower end, you're going to have people making the decision about walking and cycling more because of where the fare's set. And then at the other end, those longer riders, they're getting an exceptionally good value. So that's something we do always have to consider. So it's not just it's a really complicated role in that I'm charged with the being in the black with the figures, but also that I'm encouraging sometimes people off of Fastrack and to use other sustainable modes such as cycling and such. So it can be very complicated.
So picking up on this ticketing business, Alexander Baldwin-Smith, who comes from TfL, actually says or asks, is there currently off-board fare collection, or would this be part of going cashless? And we'll take his second bit in a minute, but thinking about fares for a minute, obviously there's a big change coming in your thinking, but at the moment, what's available?
Yes, I mean, we when Fastrack first started, we had the kind of traditional ticket machines at the bus stops. We don't have those any. Well, I say we don't have them. There's still a few of them still exist. They're just now ashtrays and places for people to put cigarettes out. But they are being slowly removed. So obviously, at the moment, the way that it's contracted is that Arriva pay us a departure fee, and then they collect the fares. So it does take advantage of their app and you can buy tickets ahead, but also buy tickets on board. What we're doing when we go to gross cost contract, more akin to the TfL model, is we're actually using Fastrack as the kind of centre of the launch of our mobility as a service proposition, and the plan is really to grow that organically from Fastrack, and so we will people will be able to buy the tickets online and through apps, but the aspiration is very much to go cashless, like London. When we first explored this a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, and through surveys, too many people were still using cash. As a result of COVID and temporary restrictions on using cash, more people have got more savvy and are using smart technologies or contactless bank cards. And this most recent survey we did suggests now that we've got enough a majority to take the step to go.
Cool. And what's the impact of all this fares thinking on the rest of the network, i.e. the hinterland, the ordinary services? Do you see them coming into the same regime, or how does it affect them?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's something we're trying to work out behind the scenes, is the impacts. So what we want to do is bring people along with us, and we want to set the tone with mobility as a service and get other commercial bus operators and transport providers to sign up. What is going to be tricky for us, obviously, is at the moment, Arriva will have their network ticket and people can use Fastrack as part of that. What we will have to do, because it's going to be a Kent fare, is negotiate reimbursement rates for cross journeys, which they're very, in the grand scale of things, there aren't that many, but they do exist. And that's going to be a challenge for us, and that's something we're grappling with. But what we're hoping is actually by having an overarching agreement and people signed up to mobility as a service through the local enhanced partnership, so the Kent Thameside area will have its own enhanced partnership, is that those mechanisms will be naturally in place and as part of the agreed sign up for EPs.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, change of scene now. Matt Gamble is asking about DRT. You've implemented DRT as a forerunner to Fastrack in Ebbs Fleet Garden City. What's been your experience with it? And in the light of experience, do you expect to retain it, or will you be pressurized to continue to retain it to operate in parallel with Fastrack when that comes on stream?
Sure. So I think that the position, our position on DRT is a little bit odd in light of Fastrack. So by design, what we think on the Fastrack network as it develops is that we've had some success where the busways have gone in first and housing and businesses have been built around it. And then in other places, we've been late to the party. And in those places, we've seen that other or residents have made other choices around journeys, and it's very hard to then change those behaviours. So we had this idea that we can't always get Fastrack in from day one because of the need for the major infrastructure, but there are roads built. So we had this idea that we would use DRT as a kind of spearhead, so that when people are moving in, if Fastrack isn't there, they still do have a public transport service, and they're used to not having reliance on the car. I don't think in many areas they will coexist, but I think that our plan with the DRT is to keep moving it around ahead of Fastrack,
right?
And it's nimble enough to do that. But the reason why we think it's odd is, I mean, DRT is very difficult to make stack up. Loads of people have tried it and walked away from it, but it's how you measure it. If you're looking at purely the bottom line, lots of commercial bus companies have just have stepped away, but if we measure it slightly different in terms of uptake and number of journeys not made by car. And I actually think that it's lots of companies have done it the wrong way, and again, this is where it goes against the grain of Fastrack and the premiumness of Fastrack, is that they've looked at it and gone, oh, these DRT minibuses are going to have leather seats, Wi-Fi, chargers. And I mean, my opinion is the way you could have a better chance of making it work is actually just have the very bare minimum basic minibuses. The only real upgrade is the app. And you might have a fighting chance. If you look at the kind of Uber market and that kind of race to the bottom is if you want to compete with that, you need to make the operation as cheap as you can. But it's I think that DRT will retain a place, but it will have to move and be nimble.
Presumably BRT is the winner always, because once you put it in, it's so much better than what you've had before that it just sweeps everything in front of it.
Yeah, well, one of the things that is really apparent in Kent and around Fastrack network is people don't call it the bus; they call it Fastrack. It's a thing unto itself. There is we get people that tell us, oh, I wouldn't use regular buses, but I will use Fastrack. So they do see that step difference. And I think that that's always been the kind of the argument for the tram over bus or BRT. But I think that actually BRT does have that impact if you brand it and it works properly. But you've got to continue to have that kind of, we're very fortunate in Kent that we do have the political support, but we know that if the winds change on that, it all of a sudden could become very difficult to run it the way that we do. But it's you've got to have that political buy-in. But then BRT does work, and the beauty of using buses, of course, is that when things go wrong out there on the network, you can be nimble and move around them, and you can also implement further stages very quickly.
Absolutely. That's the top line of it, isn't it? And the bottom line. Now we're almost out of time, amazingly. There's one last topic we haven't covered, and we'll have to cover it very briefly if you don't mind, which is about stops. You showed us some very interesting developments of stops, and I noted particularly the roofs of them. But the question was, keen to hear about the work. What are you doing to make these tram-like rather than regular bus stops? Well, I think your pictures seem to illustrate that, don't they? So just a couple of minutes on that, please, because we really are coming to the end of our time.
Sure. So one of the things that you've got to do to make it work is space these out. We're always being asked, could we just have an extra stop here, extra stop there, in between? And that's great, but actually, as I said, journey time is a massive factor to us. But we believe that the stops do need to be premium. They do need to stand out against conventional bus stops. So our tender, we always ask for we want something that no one else has. We're very, very kind of arrogant like that, in that we want Fastrack always to be different and unique. So I think that the stops we have are great, but they could be better. And I think it's just about having the facilities, particularly at the major trip attractors and interchange points, is that you do have the latest RTI, you do have better premium seating and coverage from the elements, but it's not just about the kit that you put in. It's about maintenance and keeping them clean and keeping graffiti free, which is virtually impossible. Where we are,
you have to run after it all the time, don't you? That's the thing about it.
You're always chasing it. But I think it's measuring. For us, what we do is we prioritize based on footfall and usage, and the stops where we get the most lighting and boarding is where we really put our focus, and then we work our way through until the money runs out.
Oh, there you are. Right. That's the story of everyone's lives, of course. We've come out of the, almost to the end of our time now. It's 28 minutes past 1. Shane, all the way over there in the USA, and Daniel a bit closer to home. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting. It's a most impressive operation, and indeed a most impressive opportunity. The things that are coming sound as exciting as what you've already got, and well worth a visit. So anyone's got any ideas about where to go for their holidays, it sounds to me like Kent Fastrack is a good place to go. So thank you very much indeed for that. We really appreciate it. Thanks also to our audience as ever for your interest and all your comments and questions. Don't forget that we have been recording this program, and will in due course be uploaded to YouTube, hopefully this afternoon. And you'll be able to access it and all the previous 5 lunchtime masterclasses by going to Passenger Transport website, which reminds me that I must thank our media partners, Andrew Garnett and Rob Jack at Passenger Transport, who are reporting on these sessions as they unfold. And I also always say thank you at this point to Ray Stenning, who did the wonderful advert in Passenger Transport, which has appeared in each edition over the last few weeks, and also to Atkins, who support the whole thing financially. And I should mention too, my fellow BRT UK board members who've been working behind the scenes to ensure the success of this program of lunchtime masterclasses supported by Atkins. As I mentioned earlier, not only are the sessions being recorded, but also we have PDF copies of the slides that you can take from, if you write me an email at events@brtuk.com, I'll send you a copy of the slides that Daniel showed. So that was today, and we round off our series of 7 lunchtime masterclasses supported by Atkins with a presentation by bus industry grande Robert Montgomery next week. His title is Bus in the UK, Delivery in the Promised Land, Sharing the Spend and the Spoils. I think he promises us a thought-provoking and even maybe controversial session. So do make sure that you don't forget to come along to that next Thursday, July the 7th, using the same link as we've done today. So do join us at 12:30 next week. So a huge thank you again, therefore, to today's special guest, Shane Hymers, all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, and Daniel Gillen. And indeed, as ever, thanks to all of you, our audience. This is James Freeman signing off for BRT UK until a week today, 7th of July. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Daniel. See you next week. Goodbye.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.